Well, guys, we warned you that football was not going anywhere just because the Super Bowl is over. We've got plenty more to talk about. We are a week away from free agency starting, so we wanted to do something a little different this time and talk about some free agents and where we think they might go. So let's not waste too much time. Brian, who is your first player? Where do you think they're going?
All right, so my first player is actually going to be a local to Atlanta is Justin Fields from the Pittsburgh Steelers. Um, I don't think he had a bad year. I know he didn't play in all the games. Russell Wilson kind of took over the show, but what time he did play, he looked pretty good. I think he's still young enough, got all the skills, and under the right coaching set, I think he could be a great player. So with that coaching, I'm going to go with Pete Carroll and the Raiders. I know the Raiders are looking for a quarterback. He would be a strong, proven quarterback that, unlike drafting one that you have to kind of go through that first year growing pain. I feel like Justin Fields has already gone through his growing pains with Chicago and then the Steelers. He just needs the opportunity with the right coach. I know Pete Carroll loves mobile quarterbacks. He had it in Russell Wilson, and I do know that Russell Wilson is a free agent as well. However, he has a little bit of age on him. So I don't know that he would be the right fit for um, the Raiders, but I do like Justin Fields going over there. I think that would be a great pickup. They could probably get him for a pretty good price. And like I said, they still could mold him into being an all star quarterback.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned good coaching because Arthur Smith is the offensive coordinator, and we as Falcons fans have some strong opinions about Arthur Smith. It's funny that you bring up the Las Vegas Raiders as your destination because that is actually the destination for the quarterback that I chose, which is Sam Darnold. I have him leaving the Minnesota Vikings and going to the Las Vegas Raiders. So I guess we both kind of have that Pete Carroll pipeline. Uh, I mean, 2024, Sam Darnold threw for over 4,300 yards. He had 35 touchdowns to only 12 interceptions, passer rating of 102.5. Safe to say he had his best year under Kevin O'Connell, and I see that that is going to reward him handsomely. He is the top free agent quarterback on the market this year. The Raiders, they have the second most cap space in the league behind only the Patriots. They're sitting at like 97 million right now. They also have the sixth pick in the draft. So it's possible that they prove us both wrong and go with a rookie. But I could see them taking all that cap space, taking that top pick, and really trying to build around Sam Darnold or any veteran quarterback. I think you've got Brock Bowers. He's one of the best young stars in the game right now. Jacoby Myers is one of the best wide receiver twos in the league. And there's a lot of reason to think that more help is on the way. Pete Carroll, at his age, is not brought in to bring in a rookie quarterback and try to build this team up over the long haul. I think that they brought him in to not really have a long extended rebuild. I don't think that that hiring is indicative of that. So I think Sam Darnold being that top quarterback, having the career resurgence that he had this year, I think he's the guy for the Raiders. Chris, who's your player?
Well, I've got Kirk Cousins. I've got him going to the Raiders as well. No, I'm just kidding. I really shouldn't have picked Kirk because he's incredibly hard to predict right now, or incredibly easy, depending on who you ask. I've read, and maybe a lot of others have too, that he is headed to the Browns. They're likely to sign him if they're unable to draft Cam Ward. I've also heard that the Falcons could keep him, but that doesn't make a lot of financial sense to me. I forget the exact dollar figures. Uh, while this is a Browns move to hire a failing old quarterback, I'm going to stick with the rumors and say that he is going to go to the Browns. They don't have time to waste getting a quarterback, so they signed Cousins regardless of the draft. This may not be much of a bold pick, but it's almost expected, and that's just why I thought I'd throw him out there first.
Now, did you give any thought to the Giants as being another possible landing spot?
Uh, no, not really.
Just
I
curious.
mean,
I didn't
anything's
know.
possible, I guess.
I've seen Aaron Rodgers linked a lot to the Giants. That's not somebody that we're going to talk about in this video, but I have seen
Mhm.
Cousins listed as a possible option for the Giants. It seems like those guys might be coaching for their jobs this year. So just didn't know what you thought about that.
Yeah, just gonna go with the Browns. It seems to be out there on everyone's radar, and if everyone's saying it, doesn't mean it's true, but a lot of times it will be.
All right, so moving away from the quarterback position, Brian, who do you have next?
All right, so my next one is going to be Aaron Jones from the Vikings. Now, I kind of teased this a couple videos ago. I actually like him going to Dallas. I know they need running back help. They need to transform that running back uh, room a lot. Um, are they going to go after running back in this draft? I mean, it's a huge draft class for running backs. There's a lot of good ones in there. Or do they need to go with somebody that's proven more established? Or could they do both? I think Aaron Jones could be that running back. I think it would be a pretty good fit for that team. Um, I'm not a huge Dallas Cowboys, but I know, or Dallas Cowboys fan, but I know Chris is. What do you think about that?
I think they'll actually go to the draft for that and start out young. Um, I think there's a few other issues they need to address first, but I'm actually going to address that in one of my picks. So I think it's not crazy with such a deep draft that they will actually draft a couple of running backs and maybe not go the route of free agency. And I'm pretty sure I I don't know the numbers. I think Brad was telling me a while back that the Cowboys don't have a lot of space to sign free agents right now. So I think they're going to pick and choose that wisely, and I think they might go young over a guy that's been sitting there for a little bit.
Yeah, I think so. I think offensive linemen are sometimes a lot harder to predict who's going to be successful and who's not. I think running backs, as far as scheme fit and all, they tend to, pun intended, hit the ground running when it comes to their time in the league. You can see a rookie running back make an automatic impact, and while they're cheap and young and healthy, relatively speaking, of course, I think Dallas might choose to go that route. There are a lot of good running backs in this draft class, and Dallas has a lot of needs and not a lot of assets to address those. But that's kind of the same line of thinking that led me into picking this next player. I've got Drew Dalman, who is a center for the Atlanta Falcons. He's only 26 years old. He was a former fourth round pick out of Stanford in 2021, and I have him going to the Chicago Bears. Funny enough, Trey Smith was my original pick for this segment, and he ended up, for all of the reasons that I had laid out for this video, he ended up getting tagged by the Chiefs. So I had to correct that and go with a different player. But Drew Dalman was graded by NFL.com as an average backup or special teamer coming out of college. And he is now projected to be the second highest paid center in the league behind Creed Humphrey with the Chiefs. Uh, but the need is obvious when it comes to Chicago. Caleb Williams was sacked 68 times last year. New head coach Ben Johnson, he's going to want offensive efficiency. They've got a lot of investment on the offensive side of the ball. They've got Caleb Williams, DeAndre Swift, DJ Moore, Roma Dunze, and Cole Kmet, just to name a few. They're ready to compete. You've got Roma Dunze and Caleb Williams going into their second years, and now is going to be the time that Chicago needs to take advantage of having those guys on their rookie deals. They cannot get through another season without protecting Caleb. And if you look at what Ben Johnson did with the Lions last year in 2024, they were one of only 5 teams in NFL history that had 6,500 yards of offense and 70 plus touchdowns. You don't get those numbers by not having a dominant offensive line. You have seen a lot of investment in Detroit's offensive line. I expect you should see a lot of the same in Chicago moving forward. What do you have next, Chris?
I have Mekhi Becton of the Philadelphia Eagles, Super Bowl champs. I think he's going to go to the Dallas Cowboys. This is one that the Cowboys apparently tried to get in the past. He's up for free agency again. I'm hearing that the Cowboys will pursue him again, probably with more aggressiveness due to the retirement of Zach Martin. This can also take the worry away from drafting a lineman, and so they can fill that void ahead of time and go ahead and focus on something like, as we already mentioned, running back.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And it's also addition by subtraction because taking him away from the Eagles and adding him to your roster, it hurts your division rival as much as it helps you. I think that's kind of a double edged sword and would be a pretty savvy move by Dallas, a team that's not really known for making those recently.
Mhm.
Ryan, you got another one for us?
All right. The last one on my list is going to be Najee Harris. He was probably the toughest one I had because he's not an explosive back. He's a very good back. He's very reliable. He's just, I don't know that he has that um, big Derrick Henry type name to him. So my I kind of like him going to the Seahawks. Maybe might be a decent fit. Um, Again, you could bring him into the Raiders. And I hate to just keep throwing it to the Raiders, but they also have the largest salary cap and, could use some veteran players, some playmakers. And I still think he's a playmaker, even though he's not explosive. He still is a really good, proven running back. So it's kind of hard with the running backs and the free agents because the draft class is so big and, everybody's going to want to capitalize on that and hopefully get the next Bijan Robinson or something like that. Could be Cam Scatterboo. He had a really good weekend this weekend, so I was really happy to see that. But yeah, it's good. He was the most difficult, but I still say the Seahawks would be a good fit for him.
I think the biggest problem with the Seahawks is, you know, they already have a couple of really talented running backs there. Would they be willing to invest in Najee Harris? I could actually see Najee getting a pretty decent contract. He's still relatively young. And like you said, not a lot of big play potential, but overwhelmingly consistent. 4 1,000-yard seasons to start a career. I was actually surprised that Pittsburgh did not use the 5th-year option on him, but they said they're open to bringing him back as well. That was actually the player when we talked to each other about who we were going to talk about in this video. I was most interested to hear about just because Najee Harris is somebody that I've taken a lot of interest in as well, and I'm very curious to see what happens with him as we get into free agency and where he might end up in 2025.
Yeah, that's why
Uh,
I said he was kind of the hardest back or the hardest player I had to kind of find a home. Again, I like him at Pittsburgh, but if they're not, wanting to stay with him, where does he fit in? Because like you said, he's not explosive, but he does have a lot of good plays. He's reliable. The 1,000-yard seasons, you can't look past that. But is he gonna command the super big contract? No, but will it be bigger than a rookie's? Absolutely. So, like I said, he was just a hard one for me to put in a place other than where he's currently at. And
what
I
would you
don't
think about what would you think about him going to the Chargers and playing with Jim Harbaugh?
that it, that's not a bad place, really. I mean, it really is not. Um, I think the Chargers had a really good year. Um, I don't know. That wouldn't be too terrible of a pick.
But
Anywhere on the West Coast, I think.
Well, you think about the year the Chargers had, and they were doing it with J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards, and they were a couple of old crippled running backs that have had almost more unhealthy games than healthy ones. Imagine having the consistency of Najee Harris,
Sure.
who I don't think is out of his prime at all. I think that could be a pretty good landing spot. My last player, I'm actually moving over to the defensive side of the ball, and I've got Josh Sweat, a linebacker slash edge player from the Philadelphia Eagles, also leaving Philadelphia after getting his Super Bowl ring and joining the Arizona Cardinals. Sweat had 8 sacks in 16 games this past season. In the Super Bowl, you really saw him make his money. He had 2 tackles for a loss. He had 2.5 sacks of Patrick Mahomes, 6 total tackles, and 3 quarterback hits. To say that Mahomes was under duress in that game would be an understatement, and Sweat had a big portion of that as well. 43 career sacks, 97 quarterback hits, 54 tackles for a loss. And this is somebody that lives in the backfield. He wreaks havoc. And his best year came in 2022 when he had 11 sacks. And that was when Jonathan Gannon was the defensive coordinator of the Eagles. He is now the head coach of the Arizona Cardinals. And that is the biggest need for Arizona at this point is an outside linebacker. Sweat would be an immediate upgrade over anybody that they have on that roster. And there's a lot of scheme familiarity right there. I think it's just a match made in heaven. They already have a star-studded offense there in Arizona. Kyler Murray, Marvin Harrison Jr., and Trey McBride kind of lead that offense. But they need an improved defense to become a playoff team in 2025 and compete with some of these other teams. We saw what happened to the Commanders. They had a really good offense, very young, very explosive, but their defense just could not hang with some of the upper echelon teams. And that's why you saw Philadelphia had the success that they did this year. And I think that Arizona is going to have to really invest in that side of the ball and show some improvement if they want to be in that same upper echelon. Chris, you had another one for us?
Yeah. To mention the Raiders for the fourth time in this video, I think I've got DJ Reed of the Jets. He would be the top cornerback in Las Vegas and would help them try to tame opposing quarterbacks such as Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert. While the team continues to build on the offense, he would also be reunited with Pete Carroll. And I think if Pete Carroll has any say, he might push for that. And yeah, you're in a division where quarterbacks are just wild, and I think this is a good move. And reuniting with your former coach, not always a perfect thing, but it looks good to me. So DJ Reed to the Raiders.
Yeah, I like that pick a lot. It kind of hurt me to go with Arizona Cardinals for Josh Sweat. And I know you're kind of in the same boat with Dallas. Is we want to talk about our favorite teams, not to the point that it's all we talk about, but this is kind of a very exciting time. You start talking about the big name free agents, and everybody wants Myles Garrett to come to Atlanta. That's kind of the big name around here that you'd love to see. But Dallas and Atlanta are kind of in that same boat where they just don't have the money to make the flashy signings. I really wanted to say Josh Sweat to Atlanta. I had prepared some stats for that as well, which I'll lay out here. The Falcons in the last 20 seasons have never finished top 10 in sacks. They have been 20th or below 15 times in those 20 seasons. They've been 30th out of 32 or worse 7 times. Since in 2024, they were 31st in sacks. But if you go over the last 5 years, the last 10 years, or the last 20 years, and you combine the sack numbers, Atlanta is 32nd no matter what. Just not enough money to really do what you need to do to address that position. So I expect Atlanta to kind of go that way in the draft. But it really hurts when you see these players that you would love to see in your home team uniform go somewhere else. But I appreciate you guys kind of doing this exercise. I hope everybody watching enjoyed this as well. Let us know in the comments what you think about free agency coming up next week. Who are some names that you think could be finding some new homes, and what would be your dream signing? Guys, did y'all have anything else?
No, I'm good.
Be sure to look out. We'll probably ask this question in a YouTube poll or a post. So be sure to look at that, interact with that, and vote after you've seen the video. And let us know some feedback that way. It might be a fun, more interactive way to do so.
And I know this isn't a podcast, but I did want to say I wanted to thank everybody for the 30 subscribers. We hit that goal. Super happy to see that. I would say the next goal was 50. How we get there, I don't know, but I'd like to see it sooner rather than later.
Well, I think it's everybody that's listening to this right now. If every single person listening went and told one more person and got them to subscribe, we would actually hit 60. But I'd like to see 50 soon. And guys, you're our lifeline when it comes to that. We're throwing it out to you. Anybody that you can think of that would like videos like this, we've got more coming, but we wanted to get this out before free agency started. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give us a like, comment, subscribe if you haven't already. Tell your friends about us. We'll see you next time.